Hey everyone, it's Dr. Jolene Brighten. I'm a leading expert in post-birth control syndrome, and today I'm joined by Mallory, who's going to share about her hormonal journey. Thank you, Mallory, so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Yes, thank you for letting me join you.
Awesome. Well, to begin this conversation, I'd love for you to share with us how you got on hormonal birth control and what that was like for you.
I was trying to think when I started birth control, and it was probably when I was about 17. And the reason I got on it was for acne. I had tried some of the other medications and had a little bit of kickback on my skin, easy sunburning, skin fading, and so they recommended birth control, and I I started and I didn't stop for years to come after that.
And how long did you spend on birth control?
I was probably on birth control almost 10 years.
Okay.
Um, I went off a couple times during that time, and I kind of tried the NuvaRing and some other options, but overall, probably about 10 years.
All right. And so you started hormonal birth control, so I'm assuming the pill for acne, which is a very common reason. The majority of women are starting hormonal birth control for symptoms. What was that like for you? Did it help? Did your skin heal up?
Honestly, no, my skin was never great. I still had to do like other topical creams, and honestly, still do to this day. I'd say my skin improved a little bit, but no, I think I ended up staying on it for other reasons eventually, but no, I did not see much of an improvement at all as far as acne was concerned.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of women who are like, I started it for acne. My acne never got better. And then I didn't go off of it because my doctor was like, this is the best that we have. And there's the real fear that when you come off of it, your acne could get a whole lot worse than what you're seeing. Did you have any other side effects or issues while you were on it?
Gosh, I have to sit and think back. I've been through a lot with fertility since then, but as far as issues, I think the biggest issues were when I would go off of it, more like mood swings. But on it, no, it was pretty consistent. My period it was nice to have it every 28 days. And so, no, not really any side effects that I recall. I think when I started it, I think I gained quite a bit of weight, if I recall.
Mm-hmm.
Gained about 10 pounds between like 17 and 19. So, and when I went off of it, I did not lose any of that weight.
Yeah, well, it's something that I've seen that, women will gain weight while on hormonal birth control and it doesn't necessarily go away. Some women, it does because it's a lot of inflammation and water weight they're holding on to. But
Mhm.
for the most part, those fat cells have been stimulated by that estrogen for so long. They get caught up in that loop of being like, we want to stay fat and plump. We want to secrete estrogen, which will reinforce that. And so it takes a bit of a metabolic shift and working on those hormones to make that change to the weight. Now, when you did decide to come off, did you do anything to prep your body?
No, pretty
Yeah,
much just cold turkey.
most women do because we've all heard. I mean, I heard when I was on the pill, my doctor was like, oh, you just stop, your period comes back, everything's fine, doesn't skip a beat. And in reality, we know that most women struggle to come off of hormonal birth control and they develop what's called post-birth control syndrome, which sounds a bit like what you had going on. So what happened for you when you finally decided to call it quits?
So I went off a couple of times, I guess throughout college, and I don't recall ever having an issue. My period was pretty much every 28 days, Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Like I had a very consistent, very mild period my entire life. And then
Hmm.
I went off in my mid 20s. I'd been married about a year, and we had talked about we were ready to just not necessarily want kids, but if it happens, it happens. And I went off birth control, and I never got a period, never got a period. And so I spent the year after that, about every 2 to 3 months, I would go to an OB, and I can't remember what's the name of the pill that they put you on to try to start a period that's not birth control,
The
but it's like,
the
yeah,
progesterone challenge. Yeah.
yeah, they would put me on something like a type of progesterone, and that never worked. And so
Hmm.
they would put me on a month of birth control. I would get a period, and then none of the fertility treatments were working. So I still, I mean, I went through 3 years of fertility. I now have 8-month-old twins, and I still don't have a period. So I'm still trying to figure out what happened because it seriously went 28-day cycles, and now nothing.
So you had regular 28-day cycles before you ever started birth control. You went off birth control twice, periods came back, but the third time is when they went missing altogether?
Correct.
Yeah. And so that's something that and there's lots of women I've talked with and lots of patients I treated where they'll go off of hormonal birth control and things are fine. They don't get post-birth control syndrome, but like the second time, the third time, that's when it'll trigger and it'll come up. With that, one thing that we know, so if you give progesterone and you withdraw and there's no bleed, it's likely because the endometrium hasn't built up enough. And so with that, what birth control is doing is shutting down how your brain's talking to your ovaries. Your brain has to talk to your ovaries. Your ovaries have to make estrogen to build up the endometrial tissue. Then it spikes so that you ovulate. And then as that declines, then you get your period. And so if your doctor's giving you just progesterone and then withdrawing it, there might not be enough endometrium to really shed because you're not getting the estrogen stimulation. And what makes it really tricky, and we're just starting to understand the research with this, is that your estrogen can actually be fine, but your receptors for your endometrial tissue to respond to that estrogen have been downregulated. So that's one way that birth control can protect against endometrial cancer. But, like I said, the research is very new in this area to understand, can you get those receptors back online? Can those receptors ever come back so that when you make your own estrogen, that they are actually stimulated? And so I like to say that, that endometrial tissue, I think about it being like a bed. Like, do you want to sleep in a nice fluffy down comforter or do you want to sleep on a hard floor? Of course, we're going to choose like that fluffy down comforter, and that's absolutely what a fertilized egg is going to choose as well. And so we have to have a certain thickness. And if you go through fertility treatments, then you've definitely heard all of these things about how's the endometrial lining. There's a certain thickness it has to be in order for implantation to take place. Well, I'm curious, in going through all of that, were you having a positive LH? Were you having signs of ovulation?
No, I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up doing IVF because no, I wasn't having a positive LH.
Yeah.
So I have to sit and think about all the details of it because we did so many rounds. But yeah, that was an issue the entire time because I had to do the trigger shots as well to even release anything. So
yeah. So it sounds a lot like the pituitary ovary, like the HPO, the hypothalamus pituitary ovary, like communication has been disrupted, which is exactly how birth control is designed to work, to give you so many hormones that your brain stops talking to your ovaries, and that's what prevents pregnancy. But unfortunately, even though so often you hear from doctors, like there's no fertility issues whatsoever, like you won't be infertile, it doesn't cause that. And it's like, well, yeah, they say the same thing about depression. We can't say that it causes it, but there's definitely a strong correlation. And we know from the research, the average woman can take 1 year to 2 years before her cycle comes back and she can get pregnant. And that's the average woman who, is being studied. Like, for all we know, like what was going on with your acne, there was actually something else going on with all of that. And being on the pill just kind of masked all of that so that you never really discovered what that root cause was.
Yeah, it's a mystery. It's been a lot of work because I had all my hypothalamus, like the pituitary, and I had all of that stuff tested too, and everything is normal. And they told me, it could be PCOS. I tested negative for that, but you have PCOS looking ovaries because you have additional follicles. But yeah, they could never really come up with anything other than I quit ovulating. So they talked about gaining weight, but I don't see a healthy way to do that. I'm not necessarily a clean eater. I eat carbs, I have rice, I eat whole wheats, like basically good carbs. And anytime you want to gain weight, my family physician was talking about, higher ice cream. When I was pregnant, they wanted me to eat 3,000 to 3,500 calories. Well, it's tough to do and still your body feel good. So I don't know. It's still a mystery. I have not yet to figure it all out. So.
And did they ever look at like celiac?
Yes, I've been tested for that, and I'm mildly to very at all sensitive to gluten.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I just always ask that because if somebody's eating wheat, that's one of those things that sometimes celiac disease, the only way it shows up is in infertility cases. But
Mm-hmm.
now, so one thing I want to say, so I want to back up and say rice is not bad. It doesn't mean you're not eating clean. For some people, that totally works for them. But the other thing
Right.
too is that, like, thank goodness that we have IVF. Like, you have two healthy babies now. They're 8 months old. How's that going for you?
They are so fun. They're such good babies. They sleep since they've been 2 months. I get hesitant to tell new moms that, but they've been really good to me.
Yeah, don't share that with people.
Yeah.
My son he's 5.5 now, and I'm like, he keeps asking for another baby, and I'm like, maybe if you consider sleeping. But
Yeah.
as it is, I don't get enough sleep with you, kid. Yeah, and some of them are just programmed that way. They don't sleep quite the same. We were woken
Right.
up. I was woken up this morning at 5:30 a.m. He went and found an iPad and somehow turned on Old MacDonald, and that was 5:30 a.m. starting the day. It was like Old MacDonald blasting by my head. I'm like, how do you even know? I can't even work the iPad. How are you figuring that out? It has a code.
They figure it out so fast, and you probably have that stuck in your head all day long, unfortunately.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's worse things than Old MacDonald, though.
Very
That's for sure. So with that, with your journey and what you've experienced and what you've gone through, is there anything, like, the women who are listening right now to this story, maybe they're contemplating getting pregnant, they're thinking they might want to have a family in the future. Is there anything that you would share with them?
Honestly, the biggest thing that I learned through the process is you have to be an advocate for yourself, because there's so many people that are telling you, it's normal, just give it time, or do this or do that. And you know your body more than anyone else. And if something is wrong, something is wrong. So ask questions and continue to get through it. By the time it was all said and done, I ended up seeing 3 OBs and then a reproductive endocrinologist. And still no one has given me the answers to the root of my problems. They basically said, we'll get you pregnant. And that's great. And that's awesome. And I'm super grateful and appreciative. But now I feel like there's a lot of work still to do. And I don't quite know where to go. So definitely be just an advocate for yourself and keep asking questions.
I love that. And I think it's so true that, like, you are the only one who knows what's normal in your body. And so if you feel like it's not normal, you have to find someone who's going to listen to that and not just tell you, oh, this is normal, or it's not that big of a deal.
Mhm.
So with where you're at in your journey, what are some of the things that you're working on that you've found helpful and that you might want to share with other women?
Oh, well, probably not helpful to really anyone, but what has really helped me is I found a local, I guess he was a chiropractor and he's now like he went back to school to be an internist. And he has been the most helpful for me throughout my journey. We did acupuncture. He's been an advocate for getting to the root of all of my problems.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I learned most is, like, with medicine, and I hesitate. My sister's a physician, so her and I, we have discussions and we have to agree to disagree. But most of the time, like you said previously, I feel like we're masking problems and not really getting to the root of them. And if you don't feel good or something's not working, there's probably a core problem to it, and there's probably a fix. You just have to keep trying.
Yeah, and I love that you found somebody that you could partner with that can, help you address the root cause. I certainly think, whenever there's a case of unknown infertility, which is most cases of infertility, doctors don't know why. They know how to get you pregnant. But acupuncture has been something that's been shown in the research, but also clinically, to be tremendously helpful with that. So I love that you're doing that. And I think that will help a lot of women who are listening to this now understand that, like, there are other modalities, like, outside the reproductive endocrinologist that you can be leveraging. So for women who are listening to this that want to learn more about you, maybe want to follow your journey and where you're at, they're connecting with some of what you're saying, where can they find you?
Um, I guess I'm just on Instagram, and I should even know. I think it's Mallory_Kuskie. Otherwise, by email. I'm not really on Facebook a whole lot, so those would probably be my best 2 options.
So it's Mallory underscore.
Kuskie, Kuskie.
Yeah, I'm like, otherwise I think everybody was going to hear husky.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I want to say, Mallory, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, for being very honest and open. You know, there's a lot of women who are going to listen to this that have gone the IVF route, and for them to know that that's okay. Like, it is okay to meet your body where it's at. You have two healthy, beautiful babies now, which I think is amazing that we live in a time where that's possible. And I know that a lot of women, you know, hearing your story, this is going to help them. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share.
Well, I appreciate you letting me join you today.
Well, take care.
Thank you.